Okay, so now I'm going to start with arithmetic. So when you're doing a program, you can, or the way we're doing it especially, we like to do some arithmetic calculations. And there are certain operations that you need to know. Just going to make a little table here. Operation, operator, an example expression to illustrate it, and the results. So firstly, you have add, which would be simple enough. That's the thing you use. So when you're saying that something has to be added to something, you use this. And if something is added, say now 7 plus 3, it will return 10. 10 will be the answer. Then you have subtract, which is just this hyphen key. An example, 7 minus 3 will yield 4. For multiplying, you use the asterisk on your keyboard. So you type it out, 7 times 3 is 21. For division, you use the, that's not good. You use the forward slash. And example, 7 divided by 3. This will give 2. Just because, like we said in the previous video, these are integers. So I'm just going to check on my calculator. So 7 divided by 3 is 2.333333. And since we input two integers, it will return an integer value. So it just ignores everything after the decimal. Even though it is 2.3333, it just ignores the rest and returns an integer. So if you were using floating point numbers, it would have been different. But I'm just using these examples with integers. Then you get something called the remainder or modulus. This is this percentage sign. So basically it's like this. If we say 7 modulus 3, what you're basically saying is, what is the remainder after I divide 7 by 3? And the answer is 1. It's just like basic math. When you can see there's a remainder after it returns a whole number. You can just see, you can use it for things like time calculations, and I think there was an example where they used this in, I think, Prac 4, I can't remember, but yeah, you might use that sometimes when maybe if you want to check that something doesn't have a remainder or something like that. If you want to change the sign of something, you just put in a hyphen, because that's just basically saying minus something. So if you say minus 7, then it's just, if you put it instead of front of minus 7, that just be 7. So yeah, that is just basic things. So obviously in your program, if you ever want to do some arithmetic, you'd say now A gets 7 times 3 and stuff like that. The thing with these arithmetic calculations, just remember that these follow the Bud-Maz rules, where it's brackets of division, multiplication, which are together. It's just basically what takes precedence over the other. So obviously it would be for, these will take, if you're writing a bunch of math and it's, say now 7 times 3 plus 2, it will do the multiplication or division first and then do the adding and subtracting and those things. That's just something to remember, but it's always good to use brackets just to separate things, just to avoid mistakes and things like that, because sometimes it can get a bit messy as well. So some equality operations or operators. Why does it keep doing that? Where am I? Oh, there. Okay. So some equality operators. It's gonna go like, I don't know. Equality operators. So this means is equal to. So we said before, if this is written in your code, this is just saying variable a gets the value of 3. But what if you want to say, or if you're, say you're writing a loop, I'll see if I can get to that in the next video of loops and things, but if you're in a loop and you want to see, tell the computer, only do this if my variable is equal to 3, how would I write that? Because if I say that, that just means a gets 3. So you just do 2 equal signs, and that is basically the equal sign. Equal sign in itself is just a get sign. Just an example. So basically it's just if I say the beginning int a is 3, and if I say if a is equal to 3, then you print the value of a, which would then be 3 because we tested. So that's just a stupid program. But yeah, that is what that is. And then this means is not equal to. So it's basically that in math. So if you want to test, if you're in a loop as well, and you say only repeat this if this is not equal to that or something like that. But this is just what you use. First the exclamation mark and then an equal mark. Some other rational operators. This is obviously greater than, less than. We use this to say greater than or equal to, and this is less than or equal to. The thing about, so this is basically just in math, it's that and that. So if there's also when you're looping and things, you do it like loop this until my counter is bigger or equal to that or whatever. I'm not going to go into that in this video, but just you can use this later. But that's just what that means. And so I'm going to next be speaking about scanf. So we've talked about output. The simplest one being printf hello. And basically that is output because it displays something on the screen. But programs have to interact with the user as well. So if sometimes the program will prompt the user to maybe enter something. So you just said printf please enter an integer. Just please enter an integer. And then the user will enter an integer. And what you want to do is you want the computer to recognize that integer and then store it in a variable that you want. So what you use for this is scanf bracket, also these double quotes. You say if it's an integer that you're scanning, then you always use %d. You close this, comma. Just want to check something, and then you say ampersand, this sign, and then wherever you want to store it. So say I want to store it in variable a. So this is just important. It's not like here where we in a printf where you could just say percentage sign so a, because you're just saying I'm referring to this, please print this value where I put the d. But here you're assigning it to a. So you're scanning whatever the user's inputting as an integer and you're assigning it to a. You can just remember, because this is an ampersand, it's assigning to a. Just remember to always just put this in front of the variable that you want to store the value that the user enters in here at that variable. So I'm just going to go to an example. So let's check something. Where is it? There it is. So this is an example from the textbook, and it's also an example that they did. So this is just a basic program. I just put the main scan function there. This is from the notes I sent. If you don't have it, I can always send it to you. Obviously, this is a comma. because there's a forward slash asterisk and then for asterisk forward slash. So anything between those things will always be ignored by the computer. Also, everything that's after, everything on a line that is after 2 forward slashes is also ignored. It's just a comment. So like any program, you start by defining your libraries. Rather always say hash include that one, and also hash include yeah, I always just say these both in case I don't know where I'm using actions from. So always start a program with this, and then you say int main 2 brackets and then start a brace. Now I'm going to start coding. I'm going to end with a brace there as well, and just always say return 0 at the end of the program. It's just good practice. So we started by initializing variables. What we want to do for this program, we want to ask the user to enter one integer and then enter a next integer and then to print the sum. So before it prints the sum, it's just going to do the calculation, which will calculate the sum of them, and then we'll print it. So first we're going to declare our variables. And we want them to be integers. So int, and then we name it integer 1 semicolon, name the next one integer 2 semicolon, and we say integer sum for the other one. You could also have just declare them like this, comma, integer 2, comma, and the last one, and just semicolon. But yeah, and we're not initializing them to a certain value because we're going to assign a new value to them anyway. But it wouldn't have made a difference if you initialized, because it's getting a new value anyway. So yeah, the first thing you want to do is you want to prompt the user to enter an integer. So but when I say prompt, I just mean you want to tell whoever's using your program to do something. So just asking, please enter this. Okay, they're not being as polite. They're not saying please, but that's fine. He says, the print says, enter first integer, and then writes a line. And then the computer knows that something's going to happen that it needs to scan. So whatever is inputted next by the user will be scanned and then assigned to integer 1, close bracket, semicolon. Just remember the double quotes go around this sign, and then comma, this part. So then we wanted to print, please enter the second integer, write a line, and then scan whatever it is and assign it to the second integer value, a variable. And then we're going to do arithmetic. We're going to say, in our variable, which we called sum, it's going to get the value of integer 1 plus the value of integer 2, which was the values that the user entered. Then it's going to print what the sum is, and there's a placeholder there, some integer and a line. So what integer do we want? Whatever the value of sum was, semicolon. And then the program is terminated. And that's it for scanf. For different variable types, we have different symbols, so we don't always say %t. For example, if we're scanning a float, I think it's %f that goes in that place. And if we're scanning a character, I think it's %c, but I'll go through that later. This is it for this video.